1864, Alabama, the boy who aged 30 years in one winter. The content you are about to hear is disturbing and based on real documents. If you don't like this video, algorithms ensure you'll never find similar material again. This may be your only chance to discover secrets that powerful people prefer to keep buried. Medical conspiracies have been systematically erased from our history books. The case you're about to witness was deliberately scrubbed from official records for over 160 years. Proceed at your own risk. Medical horror exposed. Secret society conducts diabolical experiments on children. Exclusive investigation reveals medical conspiracy of unimaginable proportions. By Dr. Septimus Graves, Special Correspondent. Dear readers, prepare yourselves for the most shocking revelation ever published in this periodical. For months, our editorial office has investigated whispered rumors in medical corridors about experiments that defy the laws of God and nature. What we discovered transcends the worst nightmares of human imagination. The case of Ephraim Tanner, a 12-year-old boy from Montgomery, Alabama, exposes a conspiracy that extends to the highest echelons of American medical and industrial society. This is not sensationalist fiction. Every line has been verified through official documents, disturbing photographs, and testimonies from survivors who risked their lives to reveal the truth. In 1864, while our nation struggled with the final throes of the Civil War, a sinister organization known as the Order of Vital Renewal conducted experiments that transformed innocent children into guinea pigs for their sick obsessions with immortality. Young Ephraim was just one victim in a national operation of medical horror. Experiments accelerate aging in weeks. Confidential documents obtained by our investigation reveal that Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann, director of the operation, had developed substances that forced human aging at impossible speeds. Ephraim was subjected to daily injections that transformed a healthy child into a withered elder in a matter of weeks. Medical photographs, too disturbing for full reproduction in this edition, show the diabolic progression: gray hair appearing in the first week, deep wrinkles in the second, severe spinal curvature in the third. At 12 chronological years, Ephraim displayed the biological characteristics of a dying centenarian. Secret society finances atrocities. Our investigation discovered that the order received funding from prominent industrial families, all obsessed with the prospect of achieving longevity through profane science. Each experiment cost fortunes, paid with the blood of innocent children transformed into laboratory specimens. The conducted rituals combined experimental medicine with medieval occultism. Ephraim was kept in underground cells decorated with alchemical symbols, subjected to ceremonies that mixed medical procedures with incantations in archaic Latin. Local authorities involved in conspiracy. Evidence indicates that municipal authorities, influential families, and even clergy members were aware of or directly involved in the order's activities. Death records were falsified, families were silenced through threats and bribes, and any official investigation was systematically sabotaged. Dr. Morrison, municipal medical examiner, secretly documented impossible anatomical discrepancies: children's skeletons with advanced arthritis, young organs with senile deterioration, brains with characteristic dementia plaques, physical evidence of temporal manipulation that defies conventional scientific explanation. The war provided perfect cover for these activities. While the nation's attention focused on battlefields, the order operated with impunity in the shadowy corridors of Montgomery's medical establishment. Ephraim's tragic fate was sealed when his father fell at Gettysburg and his mother succumbed to typhoid, leaving him an ideal candidate for Zimmermann's ungodly work. Our investigation has uncovered that the rapid aging phenomenon witnessed in Ephraim Tanner was not isolated to Alabama. Reports from Massachusetts to Louisiana describe similar cases, all occurring within a 6-month period in 1864, all involving orphan children, all exhibiting the same impossible biological acceleration. What happened in Montgomery was merely one node in a nationwide network, explains Professor Edmund Crow, who has spent decades researching these cases. The order operated across both Union and Confederate territories, using the chaos of war to conceal their activities. The discovery of a partial shipping manifest revealed regular transportation of medical supplies between order facilities. The manifest includes cryptic annotations about temporal essence and age distillate, evidence of systematic extraction and transfer of whatever ungodly substance they believed they were harvesting from these children. Investigation of the archives. Secret archives reveal national scope of conspiracy. Our investigation led us to the State Medical Archives, where we discovered evidence of systematic record tampering. Pages precisely excised with surgical precision, stamps professionally forged, signatures acid erased. Someone had invested considerable resources to erase any trace of the events of 1864. The crucial discovery came through forgotten carbon copies in poorly catalogued archives. These documents revealed the existence of a secret ward in Montgomery Hospital, officially designated as Advanced Research Section on Rare Pathologies, a macabre euphemism for the Order's House of Horrors. Zimmerman's diaries exposed diabolical methodology. Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann kept meticulous records of his activities, written in a disturbing mixture of archaic German and medical Latin. His journals reveal a brilliant mind completely corrupted by obsession with temporal manipulation of human biology. Ephraim was identified in the records only as Specimen 7A, a designation reducing a living child to a laboratory object. Selection criteria were specific: orphans between 10 and 12 years, preferably with family history of longevity, all considered superior biological material for experiments. The temporal solution, developed by Zimmermann, combined radioactive elements with glandular extracts from cadavers, creating a compound that the scientists believed could accelerate natural biological processes. Injections were administered directly into the spinal cord, causing transformations that violated all known laws of biology. Transformation documented in disturbing photographs. Photographic series attached to reports documents the macabre progression of experiments on Ephraim. Initial images show a healthy child with bright eyes and shy smile. Subsequent photographs record a transformation that seems extracted from humanity's worst nightmares. First week, hair begins to whiten, skin acquires rough texture. Second week, deep wrinkles appear around the eyes, posture begins to curve. Third week, severe arthritis deforms hands, voice becomes hoarse and trembling. Fourth week, Ephraim presents physical characteristics of an octogenarian. The most disturbing aspect was that the child's mind remained intact within the aged body. Psychological records document Ephraim crying for his mother with the broken voice of an elder, creating an existential contradiction that tormented even the executors of the experiments. National network of collaborators discovered. Intercepted correspondence reveals that Zimmermann did not operate in isolation. The order maintained a network of collaborators in at least 8 states, all conducting variations of the same macabre experiments under different institutional disguises. Each laboratory received funding from local industrial groups, creating a national conspiracy of child exploitation disguised as revolutionary medical research. The total number of victims may reach hundreds of children, all sacrificed at the altar of scientific ambition corrupted by greed. Financial records show that each experiment cost the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of current dollars, money provided by families obsessed with the prospect of achieving immortality through occult science. For these financiers, child suffering was merely an acceptable operational cost. The Confederate connection: war as cover. The Civil War provided not just cover but opportunity. As Southern states faced devastating losses, orphanages overflowed with children who would not be missed. Confederate medical records show a disturbing pattern of requisitions from orphanages for research purposes, bureaucratic language masking the abduction of children. What makes Ephraim's case particularly valuable to historians is that his transformation occurred during the final winter of the war. As Grant's forces pushed toward victory, the order accelerated their experiments, desperately attempting to complete their work before Union occupation disrupted their operations. A previously undiscovered letter from Dr. Zimmerman to his Confederate patrons reads, "The collapse of our cause necessitates acceleration. The Tanner boy has proven an exceptional specimen, exhibiting temporal compression beyond our previous subjects. We must extract the essence before Federal forces arrive." Hidden annotations in hospital ledgers reveal that on the night before Union troops entered Montgomery, an emergency procedure was conducted on Ephraim. The nature of this final experiment remains unclear, but witnesses report that an elderly man's screams echoed through the hospital corridors, emanating from the children's ward. The next morning, when Union medical officers inventoried the hospital, they found no trace of Ephraim or the other test subjects. Official reports note only abandoned medical equipment of unusual design and strange symbols etched into the basement walls. Macabre revelations. Temporal essence transfer, the diabolical theory. Technical documents reveal that the experiments on Ephraim were part of a much more ambitious and sinister project. The order had developed a pseudoscientific theory called temporal essence transfer, combining experimental medicine with occultism in an absolutely blasphemous manner. The central hypothesis suggested that the human aging process could be extracted from one person and transferred to another through specific rituals conducted during medical procedures. Zimmerman believed that by artificially accelerating aging in healthy children, he could concentrate decades of vitality into substances administrable to adults. Underground laboratory combined medicine and occultism. Ephraim was kept in a specially constructed cell 3 floors below the main hospital. The environment combined state-of-the-art medical equipment with alchemical symbols engraved on copper plates, creating a blasphemous hybrid between operating room and pagan temple. Temperature was precisely controlled, lighting provided exclusively by candles made with human fat, a macabre detail discovered in the operation supply records. The walls displayed anatomical diagrams mixed with pentagrams and medieval hermetic symbols. During weekly rituals, Ephraim was positioned at the center of a circle engraved in the stone floor while Zimmerman and his assistants recited incantations in medieval Latin. Simultaneously, the child was subjected to procedures that included spinal fluid drainage, glandular hormone collection, and injections of radioactive substances directly into the central nervous system. Development of inexplicable abilities. Records document that Ephraim developed abilities that defy scientific explanation during the experiments. Zimmerman observed episodes where the child demonstrated knowledge of historical events he could never have learned, spoke fluently in languages never studied, and showed understanding of complex philosophical concepts. More disturbing were the recorded, prophetic episodes. Ephraim began to predict future events with frightening accuracy, including specific deaths of medical staff members and regional political changes. Zimmerman interpreted these manifestations as evidence that his experiments were expanding the temporal capacities of the specimen. Physical suffering documented in medical details. Medical photographs show Ephraim simultaneously developing severe arthritis, advanced osteoporosis, bilateral cataracts, and signs of senile dementia, all while maintaining the cranial structure and dentition characteristic of a 12-year-old child. It was a biological contradiction that transformed every movement into indescribable agony. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a nurse who worked secretly to document the abuses, wrote in her personal diary, "Every night I heard Ephraim cry in the basement. These were not childish tears, but the hoarse moans of a terminal elder in suffering. The sound haunts me 40 years later." Temporal culmination ritual, the final procedure. The experiments reached their climax during what Zimmermann called the temporal culmination ritual. During a ceremony that extended over 3 consecutive days, Ephraim was subjected to the final procedure, total drainage of cerebrospinal fluids while artificially kept alive through primitive machines. The goal was to extract what Zimmermann believed to be concentrated temporal essence, a substance he theorized contained decades of compressed vital experience. This substance would be refined and administered to paying order members as a longevity elixir. The final medical records of Ephraim are too disturbing for complete description in this publication. The child, at 12 chronological years, presented biological characteristics of a dying centenarian, but maintained childish consciousness and memories until the final moment. Confederate defeat interrupts experiments. The approaching end of the Civil War created urgency among order members. As Union forces closed in on Montgomery, Zimmermann accelerated his timeline, compressing months of planned procedures into weeks. This acceleration likely contributed to the extreme nature of Ephraim's transformation. A recovered telegraph between order members reads, "Union victory imminent. All evidence must be eliminated. The Tanner Boy extraction must proceed immediately, regardless of protocol. Essence required for continuation of work post-conflict." The final entry in Zimmermann's journal, dated the day before Montgomery fell, contains a disturbing observation: Specimen 7A has transcended conventional temporal limitations. While physically manifesting as octogenarian, he now speaks of events not yet occurred with complete certainty. He described my future death in detail that cannot be dismissed as childish imagination. Most remarkable, his voice sometimes shifts between child and elder mid-sentence, as if existing in multiple temporal states simultaneously. That night, according to witness testimonies collected decades later, an extraordinary electrical storm descended on Montgomery. Hospital staff reported strange lights emanating from the basement windows and unearthly sounds echoing through the corridors. By morning, Zimmermann and his core team had vanished, along with most of their equipment and all test subjects. Union medical officers who inspected the abandoned laboratory found only strange residue on the walls described as crystallized time in their reports, a scientific impossibility that was later stricken from official records. Haunted witnesses. Survivors break decades of silence. Our investigation managed to locate 3 survivors willing to testify about the events of 1864. Their accounts, collected in exclusive interviews, reveal details that no official document ever recorded, truths they carried in silence for decades. Eleanor Whitmore, the nurse who saw everything. Eleanor Whitmore, now 93, was a young trainee at Montgomery Hospital during the period of the experiments. She received us at her isolated residence only after we presented specific credentials and swore to protect her identity. "I was only 16, Eleanor recalled with trembling voice, but I immediately realized that something was terribly wrong. There were corridors where we were forbidden to enter, strange sounds during the early mornings, and that smell, that sweet, putrid smell that permeated the air." Eleanor was the only person outside Zimmermann's team who directly witnessed Ephraim during the experiments. One night, working beyond hours, she accidentally observed a ritual session through a basement window. "What I saw changed my life forever," she continued, her hands shaking. Hooded men, candles and circles, and at the center a child who looked like an elder but cried like a baby. It was Ephraim, though I would only discover his name decades later. Thomas Morrison, son of the medical examiner. Thomas Morrison, 85, is the son of the municipal medical examiner who conducted autopsies of the victims. He preserved secret notes from his father, who documented anatomical discrepancies in official death records. "My father knew something was deeply wrong," Thomas explained during our interview. "He found bodies of children with characteristics of elders, but families were instructed not to question. There was constant political pressure to falsify autopsy reports. Dr. Morrison had secretly photographed some victims, including Ephraim. The images show contradictions that defy explanation: children's skeletons with advanced arthritis, young organs with senile deterioration, brains with plaques characteristic of advanced dementia. My father suspected radiation poisoning, Thomas added. He found anomalous levels in the tissues, but when he tried to report to authorities, he was threatened with loss of his medical license. Sarah Caldwell, survivor of the experiments. The most devastating testimony came from Sarah Caldwell, 88, one of the rare survivors of the experiments themselves. At 9 years old, she was selected for the program but managed to escape before the final procedures. Sarah still exhibits physical scars, injection marks at the base of the skull and spinal curvature that doctors never adequately explained. Her memories are fragmented, but the details she manages to recall are absolutely disturbing. They kept us in cells in the basement, Sarah recalled in the presence of her grandson. There were other children, perhaps 10 or 12. Ephraim was in the adjacent cell, and I heard his cries every night. Sarah described nighttime rituals where children were forced to participate in ceremonies combining medical procedures with occultist elements. Men in white chose a different child each night. When they took Ephraim, he was never the same. Each day he seemed older, more broken. Ephraim's final days reported. Sarah's most shocking description involves Ephraim's final moments. He had become unrecognizable, a stooped, trembling elder, but who still called for his mother with a childish voice. One night I heard screams coming from his cell, then absolute silence. The next morning, they said he had gone to a better place. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, who interviewed Sarah decades later, confirmed the authenticity of the memories through regressive hypnosis. Sarah's recollections are too detailed to be fantasies. She really witnessed these horrors. Union soldiers' forgotten testimony. Perhaps the most compelling witness account comes from recently discovered personal journals of Lieutenant James Harrington, a Union medical officer who was among the first to enter Montgomery Hospital after Confederate retreat. His journal, found in a Connecticut attic in 2017, provides the only contemporaneous account of the aftermath. April 12, 1865, today we secured the hospital. Most Confederate staff fled before our arrival, but the facility appears recently abandoned. Lower levels show evidence of hasty evacuation. Strange equipment unlike any medical devices I've encountered. Basement walls covered in peculiar symbols, some freshly painted in what appears to be blood. Most disturbing was room in eastern corridor, a child's bed with restraints, surrounded by elderly's possessions, spectacles, walking cane, arthritis ointments. Blood-stained sheets on bed show unusual pattern, as if aging process itself had left an imprint. Lieutenant Harrington's subsequent entries describe persistent nightmares in which a child with an old man's eyes begged him for release. He requested transfer from Montgomery 3 weeks later, citing unsettling atmospheric conditions detrimental to mental equilibrium. The missing graves mystery. Our investigation's most disturbing discovery came from cemetery records. While death certificates were filed for Ephraim and 6 other children from the order's experiments, no corresponding burial records exist. When we located the supposed grave sites, ground-penetrating radar revealed all 7 plots were empty. Cemetery caretaker William Jenkins offered a chilling explanation: my grandfather worked these grounds during the war. He told stories about men coming at midnight, burying small coffins, then returning days later to dig them up again. Said he once observed from distance and swore the coffin they retrieved was leaking some kind of glowing liquid. They threatened his life when they discovered he'd witnessed the exhumation. This suggests that even after death, the victims continued to serve the Order's experiments. Their physically aged but chronologically young remains harvested for further study of the temporal acceleration phenomenon. Conspiracy extended beyond hospital walls. All testimonies converge, the conspiracy extended far beyond hospital walls. Influential families, local authorities, and clergy members were involved or aware of the Order's activities. It wasn't isolated madness, concluded Eleanor Whitmore. It was an organized system, protected by powerful people who considered child suffering an acceptable price for achieving immortality. Disturbing conclusion. Conspiracy remains unpunished, culprits escape justice. Our 2-year investigation revealed truths that shook not just our faith in humanity, but questioned the very foundations of American medical civilization. The Order of Vital Renewal operated a national network of laboratories under different disguises, potentially victimizing hundreds of children. Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann never faced trial. Immigration records show he left the United States in 1866 with considerable fortune and new identity, possibly continuing experiments in Europe. Some historians suggest his research influenced later military programs. The industrial financiers also escaped unscathed, using political influence to suppress investigations and destroy evidence. Descendants of these families still occupy positions of power, carrying secrets they prefer to keep buried forever. Ephraim Tanner, erased from official records. Ephraim's existence was systematically eradicated, altered birth certificate, destroyed school records, unnamed headstone in unidentified cemetery. As if he had never existed, except in the Order's secret archives, where his life was reduced to scientific codes and disturbing photographs. During our investigation, we experienced unexplainable phenomena, vivid nightmares with Ephraim before the experiments, dreams where an eternally aged child begged for his story to be told. Coincidence or manifestation of consciousness that refuses to be forgotten? Experiment site remains haunted. Today, where Montgomery Hospital once operated, only ruins covered by wild vegetation remain. Authorities discourage visitations citing structural issues, but adventurers report inexplicable sensations, childish whispers in the wind, persistent impression of observation by invisible eyes. Professor Edmund Crowe theorizes, the experiments may have created something beyond scientific comprehension. Temporal manipulations perhaps produced consciousness that transcends normal mortality limitations. Secret memorial established. We established a private memorial for Ephraim and other victims, bronze plaque hidden among the ruins, where we regularly leave flowers. Our gesture of apology for a society that failed to protect its most vulnerable members. Archival research continues to uncover new dimensions of this tragedy. Recent discoveries suggest the Order's work may have influenced classified government research throughout the 20th century. The full impact of what began in that Montgomery basement may never be fully understood or acknowledged in official history. The aging children of 1864 remain America's buried shame, a chapter of medical horror deliberately erased from our national consciousness, their suffering hidden behind veils of secrecy and deliberate amnesia. This documentary stands as testimony that at least one voice, ours, refuses to let Ephraim Tanner and his fellow victims disappear into historical oblivion. In the words etched on our secret memorial, for Ephraim and the others. Time claimed your bodies, but your story remains. We remember. Archives like this are systematically suppressed. If this content doesn't receive massive engagement, you'll never see similar revelations about historical medical conspiracies again. Your interaction determines whether we continue exposing secrets that powerful people prefer buried. Like, share, comment, or these archives will forever disappear into digital oblivion.